Okay, thanks.
Okay, Be'ez Hashem, today's daf from Sechta Baba Kamma daf Kuf Hey, Kuf Dalit, and 104, and we're going to begin from daf Kuf Beis, Kuf Gimel Amid Beis. I'm going to point it out. We're going to start from Masiv. Okay, Lewis just came. Hi, Lewis. Okay, we're just beginning from Kuf Gimel Amid Beis in Masechta Baba Kamma. So the Gemara just got through saying a very fascinating Mishnah. If you steal something, let's say you steal a penny from somebody, and you swore falsely, right? So the Mishnah said that, and you admitted you did tshuva, so you admitted you swore falsely, so therefore you have to pay 20% more than what you stole, plus you have to bring a carbon. But the Mishnah had a novel idea, is that you must go bring the guy his penny back, even if the person who you stole from moved to Madai. So really, it's a real hard tshuva for a person. And Chachamim said, wait, okay, it's going to be a hard tshuva, but if you can't, just give it to Bezdin, and Bezdin will somehow get it to the guy. But really, Me'ikar Hadin, once you swore falsely, you're really in trouble, because now if you admit it, your tshuva is requiring you to actually go to the person and actually return him his item. Okay, that's what the Gemara says. So the Gemara wanted to know, who's our Mishnah. Our Mishnah is not like Rabbi Akiva, not like Rabbi Tarfon, because the Mishnah, that was the Gemara initial thought, because the Gemara said that Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Tarfon had an argument. Let's say you stole something, and you don't know what you stole from one of 5 people, and you don't know who you stole from, right? And every one of those 5 people think that you stole from me, right? Over here. So Rabbi Tarfon said you hold the gzela, you don't have to return to anybody. And Rabbi Akiva says you have to return to you have to go to do tshuva, you have to give something back to every one of those people, because everyone claims that you stole from them. So it seems that Rabbi Tarfon never requires you to actually return the gzela back to the nigzal's hand. Rabbi Tarfon is very easy. So our Mishnah is not like Rabbi Tarfon. And our Mishnah is not like Rabbi Akiva either, because Rabbi Akiva said that you have to return the gazela to everybody's hand. And therefore, but Rabbi Akiva said that even if you didn't swear falsely. So the Gemara initially did not know who the author of our Mishnah is. And then the Gemara said that our Mishnah goes like both Rabbi Tarfon and Rabbi Akiva. They both agree to that idea. And really, if you know who you stole from, and you swore falsely, then you would have to return it to the actual person's hand. But in the case that they're arguing about, albeit you swore falsely, so Rabbi Akiva says you have to return it to each one of those 5 people. But Rabbi Tarfon said, since you don't know who you stole from, we have a big takana, is to hold on to it, and you don't have to make 5 separate payments because you only stole from one person. Okay, let's go back into the Gemara over here. Amid Beis, Kuf Gimel Amid Beis. So the Gemara says right before the lines get wide, Masiv Rav Huna Bar Yehuda asked the question, how can you say that Rabbi Tarfon and Rabbi Akiva are arguing when and Rabbi Tarfon says you hold on to it when you don't know who you stole from, and 5 people say you stole from me, you don't know, you only stole from one person. Rabbi Tarfon says hold on to your item, and Rabbi Akiva says no, you have to make 5 separate payments. So Amar Rab Shimon, and we said that machlokes that Rabbi Tarfon and Rabbi Akiva had was if actually you swore falsely. It's not only that you stole something, but you swore falsely. So Amar Rab Shimon ben Elazar said, Lo nechlaku Rab Tarfon, Rab Akiva al shalokach echad michamisha ve'nidei mehen ezem elokach. They're not arguing in a case where you purchase something from one of 5 people and you don't know who you made the purchase from. So everybody would agree in that situation, you didn't do anything wrong. You just don't know who you made the purchase from, and you don't know who to pay. 5 people say you bought the item from my store. So there, you just put the money down, one of the money that you were going to buy it, to let them fight it out. What are they arguing about? You stole from one of 5 people. You don't know who you stole from. Rabbi Tarfon says, despite that you did an Avera and stealing something, you just put the Gzela down and walk away. Rabbi Kiva said, you have no way to rectify your Avera, it's amazing, until you make a separate payment to each one of them. And therefore, since you don't know who you stole from, and each one claims you stole from me, you have to make 5 separate payments. Now, so if you want to say that Rabbi Kiva and Rabbi Tarfon had their argument when a person swore, in addition to doing an Avera of stealing, he swore falsely. Mali lokach, mali gazel. What's the difference if you purchased? The question is who you purchased from or who you stole from. If when you purchased, you also swore, you swore that I didn't purchase from anybody, or you swore that I purchased. You swore falsely. You said I didn't purchase, and then you agreed that you purchased it. So you did an avera. So what would be the difference? Why wouldn't Rabbi Kiva agree to Rabbi Tarfon? Why wouldn't Rabbi Kiva agree to Rabbi Tarfon if you purchase, you put the money down, the purchase money down, and let them fight it out? Rabbi Kiva should argue even if you purchased it. But Oid Masiv Rava. Rava asked another question. There was a story about this one chassid. He bought something from 2 people, but he doesn't know who he purchased it from. To ask Rab Tarfon, what should I do? I know I owe one person money, but each one claims that I bought the item from his store, and he was a chassid. Rab Tarfon said, just put the money down and just walk away. Let those 2 store owners fight it out. And then he asked the same question to Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva said, you have no way to make amends from this Aveira until you make a payment to each one of them. Now, the Isal Kadaitach, if you think the Mishtaba that the question was the only time that you have to make a payment to each one of them is the argument is concerning if you actually swore, so then you must say that this chassid must have swore falsely. Chassid mi mishtaba b'shikra. Does a chassid swear falsely? Maybe this was a story before he became a chassid, and he swore falsely, and then later on in life he became a chassid. So as a gemara that can't be. Oy Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava, Oy Rabbi Yehuda ben Eloi, and Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava, Rabbi Yehuda ben Eloi, Chasidim de Karahava. That whenever the Gemara says a story, a story about one chassid, it could either be Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava or Rabbi Yehuda ben Eloi, and both of them were Chasidim from their birth. So therefore, this chassid echad was either one of them, and they never swore falsely. It's just so they purchased from 2 people, and they don't know which one they purchased from. So again, they're not arguing about if they swore. He certainly didn't swear. So our Mishnah, who says that you have to pay back the guy in his direct hand, says that is only if you swore falsely. Other than that, you don't have to return it. You can call the Gazlan up and say, come to my house and pick up your thing. So our Mishnah has no author to it. It cannot be Rabbi Akiva, and it cannot be Rabbi Tarfon. So the Gemara shoots back and says, L'oilam Rab Tarfoni. Rab Tarfon is the author of our Mishnah. And Rab Tarfon normally says that if you did not swear falsely, if you just stole something from somebody, all you have to do is tell the guy, hey, I call him up on the phone, I stole your whatever it is, come to my house and pick it up. But Rab Tarfon would agree, if you swore falsely that you did not steal, and then you admitted that you did steal, you would have to actually return the item to the victim's hands. My timer, because the pasuk says, when you admit guilt, right, because that you swore falsely, then you have to actually return the item into the person's hand. But normally, Rabbi Tarfon holds that as long as you decide you don't want to be a Gazlan anymore, if you did not swear falsely, you could call the nigzal up and say, come pick up your item that I stole from you. But if you actually swore falsely, then you have to give it to him in his hands. And the author of our Mishnah is Rabbi Tarfon. Rabbi Kiva holds that afagav deloy ishtabeh konis. Rabbi Kiva holds that even though you didn't swear, still there's a knas that you must return the item into the person's hand. There's no way around it. You steal something, you have to give it back directly into the person's hand. Says the Gemara, Rab Tarfon himself, you're thinking that Rab Tarfon himself holds that even if you didn't make a shvua, you can call the victim up and say, come pick up your gzela. We're going to prove to you that Rabbi Tarfon holds that if you want to be a chassid, if you don't want to get punished, you don't want to get to the next world and find yourself with a punishment, even Rabbi Tarfon holds that calling the nigzal up and telling him to pick up your item is not appropriate, because to be yotzi l'dei shemayim, even Rabbi Tarfon will agree that you have to return it, because if you swore, it's not sufficient that you did not admit guilt, because then you wouldn't bring a carbon. So our Mishnah is talking about you actually admitted that you did something wrong. So if our Mishnah is Rab Tarfon, Ma'ir v'nishba, why does the Mishnah say that you swore falsely? Afilu b'loy shvur name, even if you did not swear falsely and you just admitted guilt, you'd still have to pay. The Tanya, we learned in the Brisa, you'd still have to return the item into the person's hand. The Tanya, Moidir Rab Tarfon, you can say to two people, and I don't know, I stole from two of you something, and I don't know which one of you. And he admitted it. I stole something. So nice and lezem on it. Then if you're a nice guy and you want to be yotzi dei shemayim, you have to each one give to each one of them, because you don't know which one you stole from. We go to Kufdal Ramal, because you admitted and you want to be yotzi, you don't want to be punished in heaven. So even Rabbi Tarfon is keen to the idea that even without a shvuah, if you're just a very big tzaddik, you're a gazlan that made it 360, now you want to be a tzaddik, even Rabbi Tarfon would agree, even without a shvuah, you should go give it to the guy's hand. Ella Amar Rava says, you're right, it's not true. Normally, you never have to return a gzela to a person's hand. You can say, Shani Misnis, our mission is different. The Kivin the Yodin Man Gazle, when you know who you stole from, and you admit it, right? I know I stole from you, and I admit it. I could call you up and say, come pick the item from my house. Why? Because since I could always bring it to you, so the fact that I told you I have it, the nixel is probably relieved knowing where his item that was stolen is, and he's telling the Gazlan, hold on to it as a shoymer, and one day I'll come pick it up to you. Therefore, but Nishba, if this Gazlan already showed himself not to be a true person because he swore that he never stole, so then, even if normally you would say that the nixel doesn't mind it remaining in the hands of the Gazlan, Kivin the boya kapara, since now the Gazlan has to bring a korban, therefore, it's not enough until the nixal gets it back. But if he did not swear, but if he did not swear, then the nixal says, hold on to it, Gazlan, I'm going to come one day to pick it up. That's in our Mishnah, but in the argument that Rabbi Kiva and Rabbi Tarfon are having is very unique, where he doesn't know who he stole from. So therefore, whether he swore or whether he didn't swear, they're arguing what to do. Rabbi Tarfon says, you don't have to return to the nigzal. So you just say, I stole this. I don't know who I stole it from. You fight it out. And Rabbi Kiva says, since you got into this mess, you're going to have to write a separate gezela check to all those 5 people who claim that you stole from them. So that's a different discussion of how to exonerate yourself from being punished in heaven when you don't know who you stole from. So that's why it's a very different thing than our Mishnah, and our Mishnah could come out both like Rabbi Tarfon and Rabbi Kiva. Let's move on to another thing. Again, the Mishnah said a person stole an item. He doesn't know, and he knows who he stole from, and then he swore, I never stole it. And then he admitted guilt. He has to go to Monaco, wherever the guy is, and return the item. And the Mishnah says, you cannot even give it to the guy's son, the Nigzal's son, or his messenger. You have to give it to a guy's palm of his hand. Itmar, we learned in a Brisa. At Itmar, we had a discussion like this. A guy owes money to somebody, right? Reuven owes money to Shimon. Okay, Reuven owes money to Shimon. So what does Shimon do? Shimon has no time to pick up the money that Reuven owes him. So he makes a shliach, Levi, and says, you, Levi, be my shliach to pick up the money. And she'asou be'edim. And he made this shliach in front of Edim that Levi represents Shimon to collect the money from Reuven. So Rav Chizda says, have a shliach, that's a very good shliach. Rabba Amar loy have a shliach, that doesn't work. That means Rabba is saying effectively that if Reuven gives the money to Levi, as long as the money did not reach Shimon's hand, Reuven is still obligated to pay. So if Levi somehow gets robbed on the way back to Shimon, Reuven is still obligated to give the money back to Shimon. Why? So Rav Chizda Amar have a shliach. Rav Chizda says that Levi is a good shliach. That's why Shimon was so careful to set Levi up as his representative in front of Edom, the Leiki B'Shusei, so that Levi fully represents Shimon, and that as soon as Reuven gives Levi the money, it's almost as if he gave Shimon the money. And so therefore, Reuven is out of the picture anymore. Rabba lo have a shliach. Rabba says you're not a shliach. Hachi Kamma. This is what he meant to say. When Shimon is sending Levi to Reuven, he's saying like this: Inish mehemnehu. I like this guy. He's your trust. Ismach smoich. If you want to rely on this guy, you can rely on this guy, but not that he represents me. You could just rely on him. If you have another shliach that you want to send it with that other person. I'm okay. But here's a good trusted person. But basically, Shimon is saying, according to Rabbah, that as long as I don't get the money back in my pocket, you're still obligated to pay. Okay? This is called insurance. So how long? This is called what we're dealing with. Now we learned in the Mishnah. Hashoyel es a para. Someone borrowed a cow. V'shilcha biyad benoy, biyad avdei, biyad shlucha, biyad benoy, biyad avdei, biyad shlucha shel shoyel umeisa potter. Let's say a guy is borrowing a cow, and the lender sent the cow that the borrower wanted through the messenger of the shoyel. The borrower sent the messenger. As long as and the cow died along the way before it reached the borrower. Now, normally a borrower is obligated to pay no matter what mishap happened, but he never received the cow. His messenger has it. So he's potter and not obligated to pay because the borrower never received the cow. So Gemara says, "Hi shlucha hekedami." What is the messenger of the borrower? What's the case? If there was no edim that saw the shoyel appoint this person as his shliach, so how did the mashil know? How did the lender know that this is a shliach of the borrower? Maybe it's some stranger. Why did he give the cow to this person? Ella de edim. He made this person shliach in front of Edim, and those Edim told the lender that this guy is a shliach of the shloyel. Okutani potter, and it says, nevertheless, as long as the shoyel did not receive, the borrower did not receive the cow, he's not obligated to pay for any mishap of the death of the cow. Kashil Rav Chizda, this is a kasha according to Rav Chizda, because Rav Chizda says, as soon as you make a shliach in front of Edim, he is your representative. Answers the Gemara. So, Rav Chizda explained that price is not talking about he made a shliach with Edim. Rav Chizda answered another situation with this teretz that it's not really a shliach. It's really his a guy that works for him. Everybody knows that this person works in the office of the shoyel, but not that the shoyel made him an actual shliach. It was the mashhil, the lender's misunderstanding that this is a shliach of the shoyel. And therefore, as long as the shoyel did not receive the cow, that's why he's potter. Same idea, we had this in our Mishnah. Now we learned in our Mishnah that you cannot return when a guy stole an item and swore falsely and has to return it back to the gazlan, to the nigzal. He cannot give it to the messenger of the nigzal. So what is the case of the messenger of the nigzal? If the nigzal did not make this messenger to represent him in front of witnesses, then how did the gazlan know that this person represents the nigzal? Elalav, it must be the aso be'edim, that the nigzal, the victim, made this person like the representative, his representative, and he made him his representative in front of Edim. And nevertheless, our Mishnah says that's not good enough. That you can't return the gzela to that shliach. So we see that you cannot make a representative to represent you even in front of Edim. Answers the Gemara, Targum Rav Chizda. Rav Chizda says, it's talking about not his messenger, it's not the nigzal's messenger, it's a very known person that works for the nigzal. So it was the gazlan's misunderstanding. If you would give it to that person, You think you're giving it to the nigzal? No, that person is just a worker for the nigzal, but not his messenger. But what? So the Gemara continues. But what happens if the nigzal would have actually made a messenger in front of Adim? What would you say over there? Then you would agree, according to Rav Chizda's understanding, that our Mishnah would agree that would be a good messenger. So if the nigzal went to two Adim, says, "You be my," in front of two Adim, said to a person, "You be my shliach," you can go collect the item that the Gazlan wants to pay me. That would be good enough. So then that Gemara asks, Adid Tani Seifin, then why does the end of the Mishnah say, that the only way that the Gazlan could exonerate himself is only if he can't find the guy, he should give it to Bezdin, a messenger of Bezdin. And that guy, the Nigzal, will somehow pick it up from the Bezdin. Liflik, listen every day, the Mishnah should make this differentiation of what type of shliach the Nigzal can make. Shliach she'asu be'edim, hachanami d'hava shliach. If it's a shliach that was done without edim, it's not a good shliach, like his worker. But if a shliach that was a good shliach that were made with edim, then the Gazlan could give it to that shliach. Why do we jump to a shliach bezdin? The shliach bezdin is not the person you stole from. So rather, the Mishnah should say that the nigzal has a way of getting his money back if he would send a messenger that fully represents him, that was made in front of Adam. So the Gemara says, Amrei, the Yeshiva answered that the reason why the Mishnah doesn't make that differentiation is like psikle. It's not an absolute rule. Shliach bezdin loishna asoy nigzav loishna asay gazlan have a shliach. A shliach bezdin always works, whether the nigzal appointed the shliach bezdin to represent him, or whether the gazlan said, "You represent me," to give it to the nigzal. Psikale, it always works. It's an absolute rule that it always works. Shliach she'asu be'edim, a shliach that the nigzal made with edim, that he also nigzal huda shliach. If the nigzal made the person, then that is a shliach, and therefore it works as soon as you give it to that shliach. Asu gazlan loy have a shliach. When the gazlan made it, loy psikale. So therefore, it's not an absolute rule. It's only if the nigzal would appoint the shliach, not if the gazlan appoints a shliach. So therefore, the Mishnah didn't want to get involved with it. But the Gemara says that a shliach bezdin always works, whether the nigzal knows about it or not knows about it. This Tana doesn't agree with that. This Tana holds that the only way a shliach bezdin could work is only if the nigzal made it. The Tanya we learned to the Brisa, Shimon Lazaima shliach bezdin shasun nigzal. So Gazlan only if the nigzal made it, and not that the Gazlan appointed the shliach bezdin. Potter, but then you're potter. But if the Gazlan made it and the nigzal had no idea that the shliach bezdin is representing him, he would still be obligated. Our Mishnah is not like that Tana. Anyway, back to the Gemara, back to the discussion. Again, the discussion is, how could I make somebody represent me? Okay, so Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Lazar, the Amri Tevayu, Shliach, Sha'asu be'edim have a shliach. If I appoint a guy to represent me in front of two witnesses and say this person should represent me to collect funds that are owed to me, that's good enough. The in time in Mishnah Seinu, how come our Mishnah does not allow that? How come the Nigzal cannot send a messenger to pick up the item from the Gazlan? The Mishnah is talking about that it doesn't work because the Nigzal did not make a shliach. Why? Because b'mamtzi lo shliach, the nigzal just made somebody available as a sample of what the Gazlan can do to use. If he wants to use somebody, use this guy, but not that person is representing him. The Amalei, he told that this person that's going to pick up the item from the Gazlan, he didn't make him a shliach. He said, "Isli zuzi gabi planya. I have money that this guy stole. He's not sending it back to me. He's a Gazlan. Is Chazale, show up in front of his house and say you know me and pick it up. Maybe the reason why he's not sending it back to me is because he can't find somebody to take it to me. So therefore, that's why he didn't make him a shliach. Or if it's his worker, but these are not good shlichim. That's why it doesn't work. But if it's a shliach that was made in front of Adam, that is a good shliach. Another 2-3 minutes and we'll stop. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel, new Gemara. Rav Yehuda said in the name of Shmuel, let's say somebody owes money. So he sends a messenger and he wants to pick up the money that was owed to him. Even if the guy that you owe the money to wrote up a whole note and said, give the money to this person, and he ate him sign on it, it's not a good note. Don't give it to that person. You must, if you want to return it and not be obligated to, if something happens, you return it to the person's hand, but not somebody who claims to represent the one who wants to collect the money from. Rabbi Yochanan Rama, if Edim are signed on a document and saying saying that this is his signature, and he signed, give the money to this person, go give it to that person. B'shalchin, you can send the money with that person, and as soon as you give him that person, you're not obligated. If anything happens to that money that you owed or the item that you're giving back, you're not. It's out. It's returned. That's right. Like you return a rent a car. You just give it back, and that's it. Amre l'shmuel ma'itakant. According to Shmuel, how could I ever, if somebody owes me money and I can't send any messenger to pick up the money, how could I? What's another way around it? Is there another way around it? So we'll finish up with this thing. Rab Abba had money by Rav Yosef bar Chama. Okay, Rab Abba wanted to collect money from Rav Yosef bar Chama. Amalei Rav Safra. So he told Rav Safra, Rav Abba told Rav Safra, if you go see Rav Yosef bar Chama, tell him to give me my money back and bring it back to me. When Rav Safra came to Rav Yosef's house, Amalei Rava Brei, so Rava, who's Rav Yosef's son, said, Mikasav lachis kabalti, are you going to write a receipt that you accepted it? Did he write that if I give it to you, the money is as if it's paid back? Amalei, so Rav Safra said, lie. He didn't tell me. He didn't write that if you give me the money, it's as if it's paid back. So if so, Rava said, Zil Go back to Rav Abba and let him write a receipt that by you getting the money, it's as if he got the money. L'soif Amalei, in the end, he said that doesn't work either. Even if I got that piece of paper from you, I still wouldn't give you the money that my father Rav Yosef bar Chama owes you, because the fact that that it's written on a piece of paper hiskabalti dilma ada asus shachiv Rav Abba v'nafel zuzah kabisamba till you come back. Let's say Rav Abba died; he was an old man and died, and now the money belongs to his yarshim. V'hiskabalti the Rav Abba lav klumhu, and the fact that Rav Abba wrote, "Oh, give it to Rav Safra," and it's as if you gave it to me. That's worthless because the money is not Rav Abba's anymore. He died. It's the money owed to the Yisayim. And the Yisayim never wrote his Kabalti. Amalei, so Elamai Tekanta. So what should I do, in other words, to make sure that you can give me back the money so I can return it to Rav Abba? Zil Nekneilach Agav Arva, Af Kasav Kabalti. In other words, Rav Abba should make you the owner of the money that I owe them. And by, let's say it makes you acquire the money through gifting you a piece of land. So you acquire this loan. So, and then when I give it to you, you write that the loan is paid up and that's his kabalti. It's in received. And the Gemara gives this example. We'll end right here. Rapapa, who was a rich person, he was owed 12,000 zuzi from people of Chazai. And now he wanted to collect it, but Rav Papa couldn't get the Bechazoi. Achnina le Rav Shmuel bar Abba agav asvei de Beise. He made Rav Shmuel bar Abba acquire the deed document, the loan document, through Arakin Agav. Let's say he owns a corner of his house. So now Rav Shmuel bar Abba owns the money, owes the loan, and now he collected on the loan. Obviously, he trusted Rav Shmuel bar Abba to give him back the money. So Ki Asa, when Rav Shmuel bar Abba returned home with the money that he got, Nafik Ape Atavach, Rav Papa went to greet him till Tavach, because he was so excited that he figured out a way that he himself doesn't have to pick up the money. He could actually send a shliach to pick up the money, and everybody will be happy that way because nobody is going to be held responsible if something happens. Okay.